A few weeks ago in our NHS NeuroHyperSensitivity workbook, Practical Neuroscience Masterclasses, we have covered I am happy, what happiness actually means in the brain. This week, week 27 of our NHS NeuroHyperSensitivity workbook, we are covering cheerfulness. I am cheerful, what cheerfulness means in the brain. And let me tell you, there's really a big difference between the two. Because very briefly, we'll dive deeper into this in our masterclass, but very briefly, the effort to be happy versus cheerfulness is actually pretty big. The effort that you put in happiness in terms of neuroscience versus cheerfulness is actually, the distinction between the two is quite big. This means that cheerfulness is much smaller, much faster in terms of neuroscience, the signals that you give to your brain, versus in happiness, where we are covering a much larger architecture in the brain. Here in this neuroscience masterclass, we are covering the signals that you give to your brain in seconds in terms of cheerfulness and what will happen next in the brain. Let's dive in. Welcome back to my channel. Step inside the lab. Leave the labels behind. Discover the biology of a neurosensitive brain. From the genes to environments, the science is key. Welcome to the truth of neurohypersensitivity, NHS, with Dr. Ayguen. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Welcome, my name is Dr. Ayguen. Welcome back, and thank you so much for all of your support to my channel, to our channel with people with neurohypersensitivity like myself. So let's be the group, the advocacy group, the educated group that actually drives research and also policy changes. So if you are a person with neurohypersensitivity, I encourage you to join our NHS NeuroHyperSensitivity community membership. If you are not sure, I encourage you to take the 5-question NHS quiz to see whether or not you even qualify to enter into our membership community. All of the links are below and all of the links are in my bio. So let's dive in without further ado. So today we are covering a small daily signal that shifts your brain's baseline. We will talk about the baseline, how can we switch and change and keep our baseline in terms of cheerfulness, the signals that we are keep giving to our brain in seconds to keep it active regardless whether or not you are happy. I will teach you about that, so hang tight. Then we are talking about the facial feedback. We will talk about the facial muscles, very important. Why cheerfulness runs on serotonin, not dopamine. This is so important neurochemically, the difference between the two. Why cheerfulness is run on serotonin, not dopamine. Very, very important. Then also the trainability. That's also a huge difference between happiness and the dopamine system, the serotonin system, as well as the cheerfulness. So the trainability is a key factor here. And of course, as always, what blocks our cheerfulness? And then we will dive into, very briefly, I will describe to you what our this week's core assignment is, our cheerfulness audit, and you can download it right away in the link below and in my bio. Go straight into the assignment. 1 week, very, very, very briefly, every day you will track your cheerfulness. So let's dive in. So let's talk about the facial feedback. What many people don't know is that regardless of how you feel, how happy you feel, how cheerful you feel, when you smile, your Zygomaticus Major muscle that is actually here starts from your cheekbone going down to the corner of your mouth. That muscle sends a signal to your brainstem, and that signal, my friend, triggers the release of serotonin, dopamine, and endorphin. And again, these are not just metaphorical things, these are actually neurochemicals that you can literally measure in your brain. This is what's happening when you are in front of the mirror and smile regardless of how you feel, because that Zygomaticus Major muscle sends a signal to your brainstem. and triggers the happiness hormones. Is that simple, literally. So again, what all the woo-woo people are talking about, I'm teaching you the neuroscience, the actual science of it. So therefore, we are debunking the woo-woo people here. Okay, so this means that every time you use your physical activity to smile, regardless of your circumstances, you don't wait for circumstances, you trigger the neurochemical activities in your brain. And this is so important because it's actually physical, and because it's physical, you have power over it, you have control over it, and you can use that power, that physical activity every single time as you wish, as you like, as you need. And that, my friend, is the key here. And now let's discuss then why cheerfulness runs on serotonin, not the dopamine system. And this is where the difference, as I mentioned in the beginning, between the happiness and cheerfulness comes from also, because cheerfulness, as I said, is much faster, much lighter than in hard-earned happiness, right? Because that's the dopamine system, because the dopamine system is a chase, because dopamine drives anticipation, achievement, big wins, is literally a chase after that satisfaction. Once you achieve all of this, because you anticipate to achieve, to win, and then to be happy, to be satisfied, that's the dopamine system. However, with cheerfulness, the serotonin system is activated because it governs the sustained contentment and the felt sufficiency. So we are not chasing after, the steady sufficiency is what's key here in the serotonin system, because the baseline here is steady, and that's what we are teaching here in this masterclass. At the end of this video, you will learn how can we maintain the baseline, the steadiness, the steady serotonin release, rather than chasing after getting satisfaction and trigger the dopamine system. This is the difference neurochemically. And again, this comes down to, we will learn about this in the trainability section, and this comes down to that you have access to it. You can train yourself, you can create the sustained baseline so that you have sustained and stable serotonin release, which is absolutely the key of your entire nervous system calmness. The happiness that you will release. For example, the serotonin is released when you take long walks. That's calming the nervous system, vagus nerve. Very, very important. Or as I mentioned before, it's known factor, if you're a meat eater, when you eat meat, and I can 1000% attest to that, when you eat meat, that also releases serotonin, because when I eat meat, I can tell you, and my dad is the same. He's also a neurohypersensitive person. So we literally immediately feel calm, and the happiness is insane. The difference when you eat meat is so different. And that's the neurological fact. In fact, when you eat meat, that serotonin also gets released. So serotonin release is also associated with meat. So, and there's multiple ways that you can have serotonin released in the brain. Again, long walks is one of those. It's absolutely, I see 1000% how serotonin is, I can literally feel it because my body is 180-degree different. So here again, I will train you how to actually get the sustained serotonin release, and that's our key for our day-to-day life. That's why it is practical neuroscience what I'm teaching here. Now let's talk then about the trainability, okay? The trainability, because it's physical, you have access to it at any time. You don't need to wait for you to be actually happy. Again, no wins, no anticipation, because that's the dopamine system. And you cannot run the cheerfulness, the serotonin release on a dopamine system. That's fake, and that is confusing. We will talk about this in the why it's being blocked. That's different. So I will talk more about that there, because it's fake in your brain when you are mixing up the systems your brain is running on. Now, because its trainability is there, because that's the physical factor, this is actually applicable and day-to-day life available to you at any moment. So on the research, we talked multiple times that when you have your circuit activated, neural circuit for positivity, that circuit, when you use it over and over again, it's active, it's stronger, and this is what we want to have our circuit, right, to be developed, to be stronger, so that we can have access to it automatically. And if you really want your serotonin system to be activated, then the quick actions on your day-to-day life is what keeps this serotonin release circuit, neural circuit, active and constant in a sustainable way. This can be a quick smile in the mirror, a quick smile anywhere, when you walk, when you talk, when you just literally just keep practicing smiling. Sometimes I actually do that because I feel the more I'm like, my face is down, and I sometimes when I walk, actually I force myself to use my muscles to actually lift my face, because the more I'm down, it feels like it sucks more and more down, which is not even my personality. That's not my face. My face is completely different. So I sometimes actually I'm forcing myself to be up like that, and that actually makes a huge difference. And I will talk in a second about my inner royalty journals. If you haven't already, get a copy of that from Amazon, because this is exactly how I designed it. Because when you talk with your inner royalty, immediately this will happen. And let me tell you, not by force, actually, because I'm training you with the already completed 2 rounds of the 30-day Journal with Me challenge. It's on my website, drayguensahin.com/courses, and Amber was there with me, and so I actually trained her to how to imagine in our brain talking with our inner royalty. And that, my friend, immediately gives you the cheer so that you smile naturally. And if you follow all of my 30-day Journal with Me challenge, you can see my faces changing. And in the beginning of my journaling, and literally in 10 minutes, 5 minutes journaling, then my face completely changes. That's the serotonin. That is actually physically how it works. So my journals actually do the job. Like, whether or not you want it, you don't even have to do it. Literally, it makes you smile and makes you literally having your brain to release serotonin. You see the before and after in all of my now 60 videos, okay? I did 2 rounds of 30-day Journal with Me challenge. So if you want another 30-day round, you let me know in the comments, okay? So a brief act of kindness, a brief smile, like even without, again, if you wait for happiness, we talk about this in the blockage. If you wait for happiness, that's the dopamine system, and that's the happiness, more architecture in the brain. But the small, like physical force from your muscle bringing the signal to your brainstem, that releases the serotonin. So that's what we want. We keep our neural circuits active that way. And the serotonin activity in the Raphe nuclei and in the prefrontal cortex, that is what produces calm and steady and a low-grade good mood. That is what is driving the consistent good mood throughout your day. Again, the log walk is one of those. The food, get you really good meal, cooked meal. It doesn't have to be actually meat. Meat is one of them, but actually a good cooked meal. That also for me, with my dad, same thing. A good meal is 1000% that makes me happy. It's just a fact, okay? Literally a meal. Give me a meal or let me cook a meal and eat that. That's it. It's just completely, I can feel my brain chemistry change. So that's why we have such a problem in this world mentally. Why? Because nobody cooks anymore. Nobody eats real meals anymore. Everybody is eating from outside and everybody is eating snacks, right? Here and there. We need real good meals, like whole meals. That is because that changes 1000% our brain chemistry. So that's what we are after. And if you're wondering what I just said, the Raphe nuclei, and that's the first time I'm using, because we are using so many regions over again. The Raphe nuclei is actually a group of serotonin containing neurons in the brainstem. As I mentioned, that signal that you give through your facial muscle that sends a signal to your brainstem, and then it releases serotonin. And that exactly where the serotonin lives, actually the serotonin containing neurons live in the Raphe nuclei in the brainstem. Again, as I said, the small actions every day, every second, every moment is what keeps the baseline, the serotonin release active, the neural circuit active, and that is what we have control over. And that is what we need to do every day, every moment, whether or not you feel like it. Because once you feel like you have to do it, then we are faking it. And that brings me to what blocks it. So what blocks cheerfulness then? Literally, if you are waiting to be happy, to be cheerful, number one, that's it. That is when you literally block the entire system that runs on the baseline to release the serotonin, because that is when you run on the dopamine system. You're waiting, anticipating the achievement of happiness, that or cheerfulness. That is the anticipation that the reward is there, and that is the dopamine system. So if you are faking and running on dopamine system, that's a completely different circuit. That's the waiting, anticipation. That's not what we are doing here. We are actually doing physically these actions in order to release with the muscles, release the serotonins from the brainstem, from the Raphe nuclei. And so also, because I just said the prefrontal cortex is involved, we are logically actually controlling and doing it. We are physically doing it. Good actions, small actions, smiling in front of the mirror when you do your makeup, or when you just like wash your face, just smile. That's what I do all the time. As I said, when I walk, I feel like my face is going down, and I forcefully smile, so actually that my muscles get stronger, because when we are getting older, of course, collagen decreases, right? So that we have to actually train your muscles to go up again so that we can have a facial lift, basically. And this is literally in turn more important because of our baseline cheerfulness serotonin release in our brain. And that, my friend, brings me to our core assignment for this week, our cheerfulness audit. So important, because every day from Monday through Sunday, no dates on it, but just literally please do it for Monday through Sunday, because at the Sunday then we have a weekly assessment. How is your week every day, because we are measuring every day what actions you take in order to stimulate that circuit, the baseline for serotonin release in terms of cheerfulness. So what actions do you do? We will actually following that throughout the week. Of course, if you are working one-on-one with me, I will ask you for that. Let's say whatever we are covering, whatever masters we are covering, and you feel like I need more help with that, for that particular masterclass, that audit, I need that. I will be asking you for that so that I have information, data, so that I can create a personalized protocol or personalized answer or scenario that I can actually fulfill, so a protocol or result for you or answer to your question personalized for you, because I need that raw data. And you will need your raw data yourself so that you can assess what's actually lacking and how can you take the next step. And then, of course, my friend, here's the thing, again, as I keep saying it, without physical health, none of this matters. Without our correct sleeping patterns, without calming our inflammation, or without like any movement, if you're constantly sitting on your couch, there's a huge problem. Let me tell you, there will not be a brain changes that you could seek, that you will want to do, because none of this matters if these three key health factors are not met. And we will track that with my health regulation audit, and I 1000% will ask you for that if you work one-on-one with me. Any of these master classes, plus for any and all problems, I will need the health regulation audit Monday through Sunday, 1 week of tracking of these three key elements of health. And so that is how I work, because I'm a scientist, a real scientist, and real scientist relies on real data. And that, my friend, brings me to the next week's video, and that week 28 is about I'm visionary. This is so interesting because if you follow, this will lead to a very good place, okay? So a few more weeks and we are hitting somewhere that you want to be. So hang tight, keep your training going. You let me know how is it going, what kind of small actions you do every day, and how does it change your mood, how does it make it feel. That's what I want to know, because that's when you will completely feel, trust me on this one, if you train your circuit, you will feel when serotonin is released. I can guarantee you that, okay? So this is what we want to do. We want to train you who can literally feel the serotonin release, because so many things will change in your entire body. You will feel it, trust me on this one. That being said, our intuitive insights and cognitive focus is coming up next. Watch right here, right now.